Welcome to this special meeting and celebration of the 10th anniversary of Global Sisters Report. You may have noticed that you were muted when you came in. That's to ensure a good listening experience for everyone. We thank you for your patience with that. I'm Peggy Thompson, and it's my pleasure to moderate this afternoon's panel and introduce our guests. Let me begin with Joe Ferullo, who is the CEO and publisher of National Catholic Reporter. He had served on the NCR's board of directors since 2018 and previously was an executive vice president of programming at CBS. We also have Sister Jane Wakahiu, associate vice president of the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation and head of the Catholic Sisters Initiative. She's a member of the Congregation of the Little Sisters of St. Francis of Kenya. Sister Jane, who holds a PhD, oversees the planning, development, implementation, and evaluation of the Catholic Sisters Initiative. We also have Tom Fox, publisher and CEO emeritus of NCR. He's a longtime supporter of Catholic Sisters, who along with Sister Joyce Meyer had the vision for NCR to do more coverage of Catholic Sisters and, as opportunity presented itself, to start this website dedicated to Catholic Sisters. Sister Joyce Meyer is a sister of the Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary and formerly served as executive director of the Hilton Fund for Sisters. She serves on the board of the Hilton Foundation now. She was instrumental in starting GSR in 2014 and serves as a liaison to international sisters. And last but very much not least, we have Gail DeGeorge, who has served as editor of Global Sisters Report since January of 2016 after a long career in business and economic journalism and as a catechist in parishes in South Florida and Silver Spring, Maryland. As we go through this celebration, if you have questions for our panel, we invite you to submit them in the chat room and we'll try to address as many of them as we can. Finally, today's session is being recorded. You will all receive an email with a link to the recording, as well as other resources referenced by our panel today. First, I'd like to ask Sister Joyce, who was instrumental in the formation of Global Sisters Report, to start us with a prayer.
Thank you, Peggy. So let's take a moment to place ourselves in God's presence and be aware of all that is around us. God of our universe and lover of all living creatures, we come today to gather to thank you for these 10 wonderful and challenging years of Global Sisters Report. We thank you for enabling Global Sisters Report to share the stories of compassion, courage, resilience, and justice, love, and humor that have been revealed through the lives and service of sisters around the world. We thank you for our tremendous journalists who have reached across many boundaries and borders to bring breathtaking and inspiring stories to visibility, and for beautiful images and stirring videos that celebrate creativity and goodness. We thank you for the financial and other support that you have brought us, all of our readers. We pray that you will continue to pour out this love on all of us and allow Global Sisters Report to flourish so it can truly reflect the wholeness, beauty, and holiness of our world. Amen.
Thank you, Sister. Joe, can you give us an overview of how GSR fits with the mission of National Catholic Reporter and how it's become such an integral part of the NCR publishing company?
Hi, Peg. Thank you. Thank you, Sister Joyce, for that beautiful prayer. I appreciate it. You know, for NCR, that's the real story to be told. You know, GSR over its 10 years has become this incredibly strong thread that binds together the community of Catholic sisters around the world. That's its central mission. And I think as a reader, I think it has done that far beyond anyone's expectations 10 years ago. But it goes above and beyond that mission in a critical way that others may not appreciate, but that NCR appreciates. NCR, we have a monthly online readership of 650,000 to 800,000 people. And an important element of our news reporting every single day is the work being done by GSR. It gets out to a large community of Catholics who are engaged and involved in their church. And it shows them in a way that NCR has not been able to before, the global reach of their church. It gives them, I think, an appreciation they would not otherwise have of how much sisters do around the world. Again, a lot of this is reporting meant for sisters speaking to sisters, but there's a wider audience there that has grown in appreciation of how sisters really carry forward the mission of the church in a way that no other groups really do. And it's truly global. I mean, you have a lot of sister freelancers writing about their communities for other sisters. You have reporters like Chris in Ukraine, Doreen in Sierra Leone and throughout Africa, Rena, who's in El Salvador and throughout Central America and Latin America. And they bring incredible stories to the core GSR audience, but then this wider NCR audience. And it's very important to me, you know, Catholics every single week see the priesthood in action up on the altar. GSR gives those same Catholics an ability to see every single day through the pages of NCR, the sisterhood in action. Sisters around the world doing what sisters do, the hard work of being faithful Christians and really delivering on that. It's really remarkable, the work that they do and the breadth and depth of reporting that they bring to our readers. And we see it every single month, the stories that our readers appreciate and respond to. So again, GSR has done an incredible job in delivering on the mission they have been given, but it goes far beyond that, and it has real incredible reach throughout the Catholic world. To be sure, none of that would be possible without the Hilton Foundation. They were the ones who heard Tom and Sister Joyce, understood the value, understood the possibilities, and have helped it grow and continue to thrive. Without them, we wouldn't be here today. Our readers, that 800,000 a month readers, would not know the things they know about the importance of women religious and sisters. All that by way of an introduction to Sister Jane, who I'd love to have speak to this group. She heads up the Catholic Sisters Initiative at Hilton and has a deep understanding of that mission and of how GSR and NCR play into that mission. Sister Jane, good to see you.
Good to see you, Joe, and thank you very much. And I joined the family of Global Sisters Report around the world and to congratulate you for this 10th anniversary celebration. I want to say, you know, what you said, Joe, I carry it very deeply because of the incredible work that has been accomplished by Global Sisters Report. And the Catholic Sisters team here at the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation and I are delighted to celebrate you, the GSR team, and the leaders of GSR globally. For me, this is a moment of reunion, a witness of grace, fortitude, and resilience, from the beginning to now celebrating 10 years. One of the Catholic Sisters Initiative goal is advocacy and elevating the leadership of sisters through their prophetic witness and service to our brothers and sisters. GSR's stories exemplify this goal of connecting and building a global sisterhood. We value this important partnership for 10 years now, and we continue counting. This moment reminds me of the journey that has led GSR this far, the contributors, the people who held this vision and put it into action. The foundation partners with Global Sisters Report to document and share the stories of Catholic sisters around the world. Before Global Sisters report, the stories were documented in a binder whose name is Seeds of Hope, Catholic Sisters in Action Around the World. Here it is. GSR was a vision and a dream then, and today we celebrate a journey of faith, commitment, and hard work that demonstrates solid partnership and exemplifies global sisterhood. Thank you for all your hard work. Before GSR, knowledge about Catholic sisters' work around the world was confined to a privileged group of people who had access to this binder that I have shown you, a collection of reports compiled by the Hilton Fund for Sisters. We are so grateful that the stories of sisters are no longer confined in a binder on a shelf. You have brought the work of Catholic sisters to everyday people around the world through their cell phone or their computers and sometimes in print. Not only that, but you have connected Catholic sisters to each other and helped foster a truly global sisterhood where sisters themselves can learn about what their fellow sisters are thinking and doing around the world, whether it is in India, in Africa, in Europe, in the United States, and wherever else. Reading your stories on the GSR website, I am filled with gratitude for you all, journalists and writers, journalists who have risked their lives to document a tapestry of stories covering the lives, ministries, and spirituality of Catholic sisters and people they so willingly serve. I appreciate the energy, optimism, and engaging approach you apply in your journalism, covering varieties of stories, hope amid trials, for example, GSR in the classroom, witness of grace conversations, and many more. We all know that journalism lights up the world, exposing injustices and stories that clarify difficult situations and give voice to the voiceless. You have elevated Catholic sisters. You have documented stories about the hard work of Catholic sisters. I can only say your journalistic art exemplifies sister stories as evangelizers, demonstrating their prophetic witness, not just through word of mouth, but through their solid examples in their way of life, through the ministry of love, compassion, and tenderness, and by offering prophetic witness and hope through accompanying the people they serve in all spheres of life, whether it is in caring for those who are trafficked, caring in healthcare, in education, in environment. The sisters' work has been brought to the fore. You have put Catholic sisters on the global map. You have connected all corners of the world. You have clarified the way of life and work of sisters and the struggles many endure. We are compassionate gaze to the people on the move, service to the people with the disabilities. Thank you so much, the Global Sisters Report, and we will continue partnering with you. We from the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation continue to be your champion and solid partner and are so grateful to continue investing in this vital work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Jane. That was beautiful. And I think it really illuminated so much of what GSR is all about. Let's turn now to Tom Fox and Joyce Meyer, Sister Joyce. Can you talk a little bit, let's start with Tom, how has the vision for GSR evolved since its beginning?
That's a good question. I think when we first began, we were just imagining what it could be like to pull the energy of women religious around the world together. And there was a second idea too, that we were very much aware as journalists that the women religious were not getting the kind of coverage that they deserved. In fact, because they were the ones who were really doing the work of the gospel on the ground. And yet, most often when people write about the church, they're talking about the bishops or they're talking about some hierarchy. but beneath that, the work that's being done, the gospel work that's always being taken, that's happening in the world, are being done by the women. And you know that, and I know that. And it was just an effort, especially to take this, to find ways that we could report this. But the second element of this, which was part of the early vision, and that was to make sure that these women would be empowered to tell their own stories. That's the part of it that I think that doesn't adequately get its play. That through these 10 years, women have been empowered to share with other women religious, and to share with the wider church, and to share with the wider globe the work that they're doing, not just for the sake of telling their stories, but for telling the stories of the people they're working with, the needy, the marginalized, the poor. I think that good journalism is grassroots journalism. And this network that the Global Sisters have put together in the last 10 years, I believe, is the widest, most comprehensive, deepest connective reporting medium for reporting anywhere in the world. You are the canaries in the mine shaft. We know what's going on the ground, and it's our duty through Global Sisters Report to try to inform the wider world. And so in a way, I guess, to allow me to finish that question, it's not that the vision has evolved so much, it's that the vision that Global Sisters is finding new ways to implement that vision of empowerment and connectivity. And I'm just so proud. I am so proud to have, I'm so grateful to have been surrounded by women, married for 53 years. I have 2 daughters, and then to work with Joyce and to work with Gail and the staff to really learn from the dynamic women, the intelligent women who really are running our church. And I mean that, really are running our church. Let's be serious. This is where it's happening. So I thank you. I really thank you for allowing me to be part of this vision.
Thank you so much, Tom. Sister Joyce, would you have anything you want to add to this? I'm sure
Well,
you do.
I'm sure I do, yes. What I've been thinking about was how it was kind of like the season. When we started, it was like the right season for it to start. And I mean that in the sense that at that time, the National Catholic Reporter was searching for funding, and they had always had stories about sisters. And I remember from the 70s and 80s and 90s, particularly about sisters who were activists for justice, both nationally and internationally. So you could tell their energy for the sisterhood. At the same time, the United Nations had instituted the Millennium Goals. And they had written a book, or they had compiled a book of 20 least developed countries. So when I went to the Hilton Fund for Sisters in 1999, a long time ago, we used that book as kind of our platform for getting out there to find the sisters. And of course, when you talk about least developed sisters, that meant traveling to extensively. I traveled to about 57 different countries, to the most remote areas of the world. So it wasn't just staying in hotels and cities and going out during the day. It was going out and living in those remote areas. And when I would come back and report to my board about the creativity and the courage and the resilience, just plain grit a lot of times with the things that the sisters were dealing with, of all these sisters working on the very margins of the earth, really, in many ways, even out in the middle of the ocean. I remember going to Cape Verde, sitting out in the middle of West African Ocean. I brought those stories back, and the board kept saying to me, we have to do something to get those sisters out, to get those stories of the sisters out. And so that's where that book came from, that Sister Jane had held up earlier, that Seeds of Hope, Catholic Sisters in Action Around the World. So when Tom Fox came to me, it was like, oh my gosh, here's the answer. We had it in the book. All he had to do was to put it out in a paper, to spread it out to the hundreds of readers that were going to be reading about sisters. And then he was talking about the online. So off we went to Africa. Tom had worked in Asia, but I had worked in Asia as well, but I knew Africa as well. And I happened to be going to Africa to facilitate an international meeting of superiors from Madagascar and Africa. And I said, Tom, you have to come with me. If you're going to do this, we have to do the whole world. So we have to get out to Africa. So he came with me, and it opened his eyes. And while we were there, we met the Archbishop in charge of the sisters in the Vatican. And so on the way back from Africa, we stopped at the Vatican, or in Rome, and visited all the dicasteries in Rome. Do you remember that, Tom?
I do, I sure do.
Yeah, we visited all of them to tell them, we were doing like a feasibility study, because we had gotten a first grant to do like a feasibility study of this idea. And so we met all these people, and then on the way home, we stopped in Amsterdam to visit a foundation that might help us, which they never did, but anyway, we tried. And then we came back, and then we had to do the hard work of finding journalists and finding people who would work, who would help us design this new venture. So it was tremendous. Well, our first grant from Hilton was denied, said it was too big, so we had to go and pare it down. So we went back to the drawing board, and that's when Sister Jane and she had taken over the Sisters Initiative at the foundation. And so we met there, and we gathered together to try to do planning together. So that's been kind of the evolution. But for me, one of the most extraordinary things is that these invisible sisters have become visible. The whole thing of becoming visible has been so important, and being given voice. And so it isn't just stories about sisters like Tom was saying, but it was stories by the sisters. And this is where, for me, has been my heart as I've worked here in these 10 years. It takes a lot of courage to write. And when you are being asked to write stories, and your first language is not English, but it could be 3 or 4 other languages, and you're asked to write in English, it takes a lot of grit to do that, because it's difficult. But did they do it? Yes. Just like sisters do, they plunge in. So because writing is not an easy skill, they had to do it in their own language, in English, but also they had difficulties with technology, because even in those early days, technology wasn't always working. And so that was problematic. And then of course they were working in ministry. They're all working in ministry, and we're asking them to do this extra. But do they do it? Yes, they plunge in. So along the years, we did hold some writing classes for sisters. Sometimes when we were in person, when we were visiting sisters in the different countries, we would hold writing classes. And then we did some of those online as well, in person rather, in line and in person. Then my other thing was, hope I'm not talking too much, was about the journalists. I have learned so much about journalism, the challenges. I've learned to be alert to possible stories. Everybody I listen to, I think, oh, there might be a story here. So you have to be constantly thinking, then contextualizing the story, local things put in the wider context of the world, what's going on in the world. Then you have to get people to talk, which is not always easy either. And especially sisters, because they're very humble. They don't want to broadcast themselves, and they are fearful that they might say something and then it'll be out in public, and what will happen with the bishops and blah, 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 all that stuff. Then editing, constantly having to clarify your thinking and your purpose. Then how do you attract the attention to the story? Efficiency of words, coherence. The discipline of journalism has been very challenging, and I really have the greatest appreciation for them. So I just have been so grateful to all the journalists that I've worked with over these 10 years for teaching me so many things and editing my work and so on. So that's kind of been my story of evolution of Global Sisters Report and my part in it. I love it.
Joyce, sister, if you ever want a job in journalism, let me know. I have some friends who I'm sure would be very happy to hire you. And I'll just send them what you just said, and they'll go, oh, send her my way.
Right. And there is something providential here. I mean, we really believe that this is not just an accident, and that things are meant to be. And I just have to say that I think that Conrad Hilton is smiling upon us right now for his vision and for his affection for the women religious, and his gratitude, and the fact that he had a sense that the women religious, the sisters, as he would call it, were really doing the work of the church. And so I think that we really always need to look back to Conrad and be grateful for what he is, what he really began.
Tom, I think you provided a great segue to Gail DeGeorge, who might want to tell us a little bit about where you see this going in the future.
Sure, I'd be happy to. But before, as Tom knows, you always do look to the past. And I have to thank Tom and Joyce and Sister Jane for the vision, but particularly the NCR base, which gave me, when I came in as the editor, now mind you, I didn't start it. Mary Lou Nolan, who was a features editor at the Kansas City Star, had come out of retirement to get Global Sisters Report started. Mary Lou and I have shared about how I could not have done what she did. And again, the opportunity was there when I presented and joined GSR because I had experience in building global newsrooms at both Business Week, a little bit at the Sun Sentinel because we had international writing there too, and of course then at Bloomberg and in the Washington DC office. And so what really was appealing to me in joining NCR and being part of the GSR mission was the mission statement. And we still follow that mission statement and those values. The mission was to be a dynamic online community that reports on and gives voice to women religious around the world. So in the past decade, I'd have to say that one of the key operative words there is dynamic. We've published award-winning reports by journalists, columns by sisters. We've introduced a classroom edition because I was a catechist, and I felt passionately that if I had had this material to use in my classes for 8th grade and confirmation students, I would have used it in a heartbeat, because this was the church in action. This was the church that they could be proud of. This is the church that they could be inspired by. And so that was like, from early on, I think when I interviewed with Tom, I sketched out that vision. And then also then we published, we've done to grow in languages and multiple languages. So the structure was there, and we just had to continue. Our system, we've introduced ebooks. We've introduced a Spanish language edition that launched just a year ago, and already its audience is a huge part of our website. There's a short slideshow that we put together that puts all of this in a little bit of context. So I'm going to turn to my colleague, Lori Krupp, and have her share this with us. So as noted, we've got a dynamic online community. Our mission statement is stated right there. It gives voice to women religious around the world. And I always remember that. that they are the heart, the backbone. They're the heart of everything we do. These stories, these pictures, by the way, tell a story. This one was I believe in Honduras. I don't know. I believe at Zambia. One of the, gosh, I don't remember this. This I know is from China, and from the U.S. when the sisters were in the U.S. for giving land for a watershed, prophetic women when it comes to environmental. And so again, we chose carefully about the images that we want to portray. Go ahead, Lord. So the first year, again, 10 years, if we go to the first launch, April 22nd in 2014. Again, you look Easter Hope for South Sudan. We had a welcome column by Mary Lou Nolan. We had a column by Elizabeth Johnson, noted theologian, Sister Elizabeth Johnson. And then we grew it from there. And so it gives an idea, though, that even then we had the scope. We had the sisters' voices, we had theology, and we had Chris Herlinger, who had been writing for NCR and as our international correspondent, writing for us about South Sudan. 10 years later, if you want to go to the next slide, there we go. Again, we have a beautifully done story by Rena Guidos, our Latin American story. Go back one there, there you go. About sisters who pray for those migrants, the people who cross the border and get into this country, into the United States. And they come so far only to have their dreams end in these unmarked graves. The story there at the top is that a national honor. We had our first global award. We've won many, many national awards, but Global Sisters Report is among 10 publications, along with The Guardian, The Economist, Reuters, publications far bigger than we are, for a story that our Africa correspondent, Doreen Agiambo, did out of Sierra Leone on how sisters there help foster peace among the people who are survivors of the terrible civil war. Again, we also carry stories about the bishops and their actions against the sisters. We report on them. We use wire stories when they're available. Again, and below, there are actions around the world in which sisters are having to voice and to be able to stand up for, frankly, the rights that they have within the church and in the world. So if you can continue, Lori, that would be terrific. Thank you. Next slide. We wanted to share some family photos because we as journalists have just a tremendous amount of fun what we do. I mean, the stories are serious, but we do also enjoy the work that we do, and we enjoy what we do. So lower left, this is us. This is the editorial team. This is, when you put us up against, again, the Reuters and the huge media publications, we do have some support from copy editors and from other people who help us, but this is it. Along with our correspondents, we have a team in India. Thank you, Joyce Meyer and all the Matters India people. We have people in a longtime correspondent in Vietnam, who I think I'm going to not name him just for his own sake. And then we have a tremendous network of freelancers around the world that we work with. But this is the core team. We have Dan, who I think sometimes we identify as sisters. Dan was joking that he was dressing, he didn't mean to that day, but he's dressing in the same habit as the sisters, the Franciscans. And then Soli Salgado, who was our Latin American correspondent, I believe it was at a CLAR meeting, or something about anti-traffic, because I can recognize some of the sisters. So go ahead, next slide, please. So there are more, because we just enjoy the work we do. Oh, one back. So we have, again, on the upper left, Soli, again, with more sisters. On the left, lower left, was from a train ride that we'd taken to go to the LCWR meeting. And that's Sister Helga, who is now our sister columnist, is the editor of our sister columnist. In the middle is Michelle Morick. And at the end there was Joyce Meyer. And again, just because we had fun I think we were playing a game at something, but we just included that. We have Chris Herlinger, who also is, again, is noted our international correspondent. We have one of the awards we won, I believe this was in 2016, 17, from the Associated Church Press. We were a national one for that. And then up above is Dawn Hawkins, who was with us early on. Such as Simone Campbell, who is well known, was the Nuns on the Bus and the executive director of Network. She was not the first one, but she was one of the ones that helped give Network more visibility. Sister Jan Sebula, who actually was the first of the sister liaisons, the sister editors that got us started. Mary Lou Nolan, as noted, was the first editor of Global Sisters Report, and then Tracy Ablin served with us as a copy editor. So continue on, next slide, please. So the numbers help tell the story. We have more than 250,000 followers across all of our social media platforms. And that has continued to grow thanks to the efforts of Olivia and alumnus from around the world, and that really is around the world. I'm just getting a note that the internet connection is unstable, so they're doing some construction in this area, so maybe that's it. More than 5.5 million website visitors since we began. We have 250 readers from 250 countries and territories, and we always take joy when we have a sister or we notice readers from someplace we haven't been. Sister Joyce actually still wants to recruit. She has all these, like, she has a target list of countries that she's still trying to get sisters from. And then, but the real issue in a time when media companies are talking about engaging and how do you get attention in a distracted world, 88% of our readers are highly engaged. They read us at least once a week. That's astounding in a world that is demanding attention and distraction from everywhere. That is an astounding number. But media companies would love to have that kind of response. Next slide, please. Again, when we came in, it was definitely to grow our credit. One back, please. There you go. It was a very deliberate strategy on our part to grow our coverage globally and to do the type of journalism that would allow us to be picked up by other well-known, well-respected, reputable journalistic outlets. Those are key operative words there. So these are some of the ideas. Again, you can see for yourself the breadth of publications that look to us for credible, accurate reporting about Catholic sisters. Next slide, please. The series we've noted, as Sister Joyce noted, this past year in 2023, we did indeed undertake the most challenging series that we've ever done and I've ever done in my journalistic career, in this Hope Amid Turmoil, Sisters in Conflict Areas. It was challenging on so many levels. We drew inspiration from the sisters. The ultimate collection of this was more than, I think it was 40 stories and columns by sisters, then which we sent reporters in various conflict areas. There were some areas that we could not, and we knew that we would endanger the sisters by going there. You know, we're very deliberate in what we do. We don't want to endanger the sisters first and foremost, and we don't want to endanger the journalists as well. So Welcoming the Stranger was one of the pieces we did about early on about refugees. In fact, it's our ongoing series. Seeking Refuge was a few years ago, Evolving Religious Life. We don't just report on the mission. That was one of the things brought to our attention. We also do report on religious life. Wisdom Wednesday is a video. You can look it up, and we will have a compilation of things that you can look to. And this was an innovation by Sister Helga, who along then with Olivia Bardo got it launched for us. It took a while, it took a year, but we gathered, string, as there's a phrase in journalism called gathering string. So when we sent reporters out, we would say, just do this interview, just ask them a piece of wisdom, and it's proved immensely popular. The Life, which has been great because it gives us that window into religious life that those of us who are not part of religious life learn from all the time, every time we do it. And we call each other's attention to it. Did you read The Life this time? Did you read this? And then A Place to Call Home, which was, again, a groundbreaking series about sisters who work with those who are homeless, because at the United Nations, and I credit Chris Herlinger for this, because he keeps watch on the United Nations. The United Nations, for the first time, actually recognized this as a global problem. Up until then, and this was because of the sisters, they had basically treated homelessness as a problem for individual countries, not recognizing that there are global trends at stake, at work here, which is resulting in huge numbers of people being dislocated and made homeless. So if we continue on real quickly, because I'm running out of time, I realize. Again, the important work continues. We did Witness and Grace conversations during the pandemic. We needed to reach out. And so we found that we had a good audience for that and brought people in. Community News is a place that sisters can share stories and share their own information. Horizons is a feature about younger sisters, and they write for us for every Friday. And again, Sister Jan got it started. Sister Michelle Mork grew it and nurtured it. And then Sister Helga is continuing it by encouraging more sisters from around the world to be part of this. And of course, our ebooks. We have a number of ebooks that we published. And here's a future. We're going to have a new book, a paper book coming out in July, August, this summer, that's going to be published in conjunction with Liturgical Press. And that is Wisdom from the Global Sisterhood, Contemporary Reflections of Catholic Sisters. So keep your eyes out for that. We'll have ways that you can order that book, buy many copies. They will make wonderful gifts. Continue on, please. Next slide. GSR in the classroom, we just mentioned. Again, that's a passion of ours. There will be 3 more as a series coming out, one on sisters in conflict areas, the homelessness, and one on Catholic social teaching. Next slide, please. GSR in Espanol has exceeded expectations. I really have to give a shout out to Sister Helga, Soli, everyone involved in that endeavor. I have been involved with organizations at the Sun Sentinel and at Mayan Herald when I worked there, and launching a publication in another language is enormously complicated. They've done it seamlessly. They've taken it and run with it in ways that I didn't even realize. I'll turn around every once in a while and Sister Helga will say, we're going to do this. I'm like, okay, great, wonderful, go for it. Because they've just taken it and run it. And it's just been a wonderful thing to witness. Next slide, please. And here's to many more years. So we'll go from there. So
Thank you so much, Gail. I mean, it's really breathtaking to see how much has been accomplished and where GSR is now. And there's so much optimism about where it will be in the future. So it's just been posted in the chat that if you have questions, to please post them there. It's much easier than using the hand raise function or whatever. And we will read the question. If you want to direct it toward a particular panelist, then that's fine. If you just want to leave it more open, we have about 15 minutes to devote to Q&A. So if anybody has a question, please ask it now. And if not, I will ask a question.
go ahead, Peggy.
Well, my question is, I mean, one of the developments in religious life in recent years has been the emergence of associates. And I'm wondering how GSR, I know you already engage with associates, I'm an associate, but what opportunities do you see for expanding that dimension of religious life in terms of your coverage?
Thank you for asking that. This is actually something we've done since I came in. We needed to learn a lot more because each congregation, each institute, they do it, it's different. Some are oblates, some are associates, some are co-workers. There are consecrated women. There are beguines. Did I pronounce it right, Sister Joyce? Beguines?
Begins, yeah.
So even as a cradle Catholic, the world of Catholic sisters was immensely complicated. It was really complicated. And so we did and always have and still do accept columns by associates and such. We have struggled with how to label them, how to like draw attention without making them feel separate and apart. We're continuing to work on that. And the congregations themselves, as they are bringing associates into more of their core, will figure out how to do it going forward. This is a collaborative effort. I'm going to turn to Sister Helga for a second, though, because not only for the Spanish edition, which she's been a part of, but I also wanted to note popularity of some of our columnists. I think you have noted Sister Nancy Sylvester has been one of our most popular columnists. And Sister Helga, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about your vision about encouraging more sisters, columnists, and associates to work with us.
I do have a few associates, and I'm the one that works, when they publish, it will be under a column. And I do have a few, and they write beautiful columns. Regarding the columns, sometimes, and one of our columnists is here, Magda Benazar. I cannot see her because there's a lot of people. but they request some of the columns. So something that published in English, they will ask for it to be published in Spanish. So then the translation is, I quickly translate it or ask for it to be translated. And the same way, when something is published in Spanish, sometimes from the English speakers, they ask, when will it be translated? So it's like they're watching both sides. And they are not necessarily bilingual speakers, but they see, and it's something that that they see, and they want it translated and not use, the translate button. They want an actually translated by a person, which is something that I'm very proud of, that we are not using Google. Every column is translated by a person.
And you are a translator, trained translator.
Yes, I have a degree in translation studies.
Excellent.
Among the
We
things
have a
that are
question
coming,
in the chat. So
Oh.
if it's all right, I could ask that question. And it's and I think it's an important one. How has GSR connected to Francis's synodal process?
Very deeply. We have a whole landing page devoted to the Synod. I don't know if Dan Stockman's with us, but Rena Gritos went to Rome to cover the Synod, and she will be going back again for the second part this year. We have encouraged sisters to write for us on it. We have, this is a core part of what we do, is paying attention to the sister's voice and the sister's role. I went back and reread the original Vatican II documents, because as those who've studied it know that the sisters, the women, were not brought in until very late in the process. And I went back and identified those sisters and read them. And again, I do a lot of homework. We all do. I mean, when Doreen Raggiambo went to, again, we didn't ask about this, but when she went to cover the copy, she read every single, I'm not talking one, she read every single document that had been put out before she went. I mean, we do a tremendous amount of homework, and that's the type of thing that a lot of people don't understand or know about journalism, which is how much work goes into it before you ever actually start to write. So the Synod, yes, please keep watching. We will do our best to bring attention to it, but yes, it's a core part, and we'll continue to be. Oh, you're muted, Peggy.
Yeah, we have a couple more questions. The first one is for Sister Joyce. Could you talk about one or two highlights from your time with GSR? And then we have a question for Tom Fox, which is, when you started, did you have any idea of how big Global Sisters Report would become? So we'll start with Sister Joyce.
Well, the most wonderful thing that I love is working with the staff. I love our staff meetings. I love going to we have a reunion, or not a reunion, but a summit, we call it, once a year, where we all get together to plan for the next year. And those are really highlights for me. But my biggest joy really is working with the sisters in helping them learn how to write their stories and getting those stories out. That really is my favorite. I spend hours, because it takes a lot of work to help non-English speakers to write in English. So, but I love it. So I love the whole thing, actually.
Thank you so much. Tom, do you have some insights into did you have any idea how big it would become when you started? You're muted. You need to unmute.
Okay, sorry for that. Actually, it's always very difficult to measure. I didn't really, when a journalist writes stories, they send them out online or in a newspaper, and you simply don't know how many people are ever going to read it. And similarly, I don't think I was ever imagining how large it would be, but I guess I could not have imagined how much of an impact it was going to have in the years that followed. And I don't think at this time we're still measuring that impact. That impact is something that's going to be measured maybe years from now, possibly decades from now. So, and it goes back to Joyce who wrote about the seeds of hope. We're planting the seeds of hope now for people who we have no idea. We might not know their names, we might not know who they are, but we're just planting seeds of hope, and I think that is growing, and so it's larger than we think it is, even as we think it is today.
I'm gonna jump in and get you on that, because in the chat, I wanted to note Sister Gemma Simmons, who is one of the 4 sisters. She notes there, again, we will send out the chat to people as well. But one of the things we did with the Synod is try to make sure that the 4 religious theologians who wrote for the report were able to also report on this. So we did it on several levels. We don't do it just as the journalists, we do it from the sisters' perspectives as well.
Thank you so much. And we do have another question, which is, are there plans for any other languages besides Spanish and English for GSR in the future?
Well, I'm going to take a real deep breath on that one, because again, I don't get, it's one of those things where I from the outside, it looks so simple. It's like, oh, how hard can this be? Let me tell you, it is tremendously complicated. And again, all credit to Soli and to Sister Helga. Are you ready for French? Because French would be the next logical language. This was always part of the plan. Again, back in, I think, my second year, or maybe at Global Sister Report, the plan I had then is the plan that we're carrying out now with variations. But the plan was always to first, do excellent journalism. That is the backbone, it's the core of what we do. Second was the classroom, because we needed to be able to get that out into the community. And then was growing the global reach. And to do that, you need other languages. And the 2 that I really wanted to get to was Spanish, to get Latin America, French, because in French, you have French-speaking African countries, there are a number of French-speaking countries that would benefit from that. So French is the next one. That's going to be an interesting challenge. We'll figure it out. It will be a challenge. So trilingual.
Thank you. We have another question, and it's a very interesting one. I often wonder about GSR journalists experiencing tension or danger covering their professional assignments, especially on controversial issues, while living out their religious life and ministry. Have you heard that from your writers, and how do you support them in that?
Is Chris Hurley
be our last question, because we're getting close to the end.
Is Chris in? Is Chris there? I don't know if he's able to join us. Chris may be on assignment for something. I will say, as the editor, yes, there is danger. There's danger for the sisters. There's danger for the journalists. I pray the rosary almost every day. I can tell you, when I have a journalist in a dangerous country, I probably pray it continually, because, and those of who have worked with me in other publications will know that that is something that is a hallmark. Your people have to know that you care about them, and that you're putting their safety and their well at the core before anything else. And that carries through with the journalists in these very dangerous countries and the sisters. We had a meeting this morning. I won't divulge the details of it because that is privileged, but the watchword I always give to our editors and our staff, the first question is, will it do more harm? And if it does more harm, we don't do it. And I know that that is one of the things that is a little different maybe than some of the other journalists, but we have a different mission. And one of the things that was said, I think Rena was, if Rena's here, I mean, what the sisters trust us. We built trust over the last 10 years. I'm not about to violate that, nor will I let any of our other freelancers. We're very careful on who we let work with us or for us, and that's very purposeful on our part. And, again, I do watch it carefully. So we take a lot of care. That's all I can say on that.
Let me just, this is Chris.
Yeah, I was going to call, I was going to note that you were there.
Sorry, I'm in a spot where I can't have video. Yeah, I was just going to say, just briefly, just today I was in contact with 2 of the sisters I know in Ukraine. And I'm actually in contact with them quite frequently, just checking up on them. Just from my own experience, I take my lead from them when I travel, and I trust them to do the right thing. I don't think I've ever been put in a situation that was really that risky, but perhaps a little risky. And I take the lead from them, and they are incredibly courageous and faithful women. And it's an honor to work with them and to report on them.
Well, I want to thank everybody who's been a part of this session, not just those on the panel, but those who are present, those who will be listening to this as a recording, those who have put comments in the chat. Please realize that if you have been registered for this, you will get a copy of the link to the recording, and we urge you to share it with members of your communities, both vowed and other, and to keep reading and expressing your hopes about the next 10 years and beyond of Global Sisters Report. So I want to thank all the panelists. I want to thank everybody who's attended, and we'll see you all in 10 years.
Thank you. Thanks all.